is really that we are first going to stay here. We're going to listen to the artist. Actually, he's going to give a presentation and share some material that's really important on the wall that right behind you, as you can see. And then we're going to have a section, once we've kind of gone through that, he's going to lead us through the space on his journey. And at this point, we can actually ask questions. So we ask that at the beginning part, you keep yourself mute, you listen. And when we are moving around into the different spaces where we'll see his sketches and panoramas, that's the moment that you can actually ask questions. Now, how do you do that? Well, it's quite simple. If you look down at your menu, there's a button that says react. And if you press that, you can raise your hand and then you can lower your hand. Do you see what I'm doing? So very simple. And that way, exactly, he can also see who's asking the question and, you know, and exactly like that. So I think since it's almost ready to begin, I think if everyone understands, again, we really ask that at the beginning here, we stay here in the main space before we move around, because it's very easy to get lost. It's really important that you understand the mechanics, you know, the principles that he's talking about, so that when we're in this space, you know, we don't move around too much. So without further ado, I'm just going to now welcome you all to the second day of the Raumwelten Festival. And it's my pleasure to introduce here Yadegar Asisi, who is an incredible panorama artist. Yadegar, I've actually been following his works for a very, very long time. He's actually like internationally recognized as the panorama artist who makes the world's largest 360 panoramas. And what's really interesting about this is, you know, panoramas are a form of virtual reality. They are a form of immersion and, you know, artificial spaces in a way, but, you know, using real materials, real physicality for it. And because they are so large, they have this inherent quality that's highly social, highly engaging as well, but actually, you know, encourages people to spend time in the space and to kind of move and even come up and touch the work. So playing with these ideas of anamorphosis, which is a type of illusion. He is a master of perspective, of course, as one must be for this field. And these spaces that he creates are these really immersive illusionist spaces that you can really get lost in. I think another thing that's really important, and it kind of, it transmits in the work that he does, is that his background is he's a Persian refugee. He lived through culture, conflicts, and war. So he transmits his idea and perspective, and because he's a unique perspective on humanity into his work. So there's something very, very human and very, very monumental at the same time in the works that he does, which are highly sensorial and highly emotional in some ways too. So he has a couple well-known installations like Leipzig 1813, Dresden 1945, and New York 9/11, and those are part of his anti-war projects that also immerse the audience's environments that capture conflict sometimes in poetic and meaningful ways. But he also works with other types of formats, like in Paris, he had done an incredible panorama of a Monet style world. So I'm really excited to have him here, because we are in a virtual space. We are talking about virtual worlds, but we need to remember the physical and this art of creating this illusionary space that encourages people to really engage, to really have a social moment, and to kind of break up perceptions of reality is achievable when done properly. The skills to do it are very, very difficult, but at the same time, Yadegar is also an educator. He has an incredible YouTube series. I will put this in the chat that you should follow, where he actually can teach you how to draw. And we spoke a lot together when I first contacted him about this, about his quest for education in terms of, you know, teaching people the art of drawing, because actually that is a skill that might be just as important as reading and writing. You know, how you transmit something from the real world onto paper, and how you master that. And the skill, it's a skill. It's not necessarily a talent, but it's a skill that you can build. So I'm really happy to have him here. He's going to talk a bit about his work, but also his process. And Yadegar, I'll just let you take the stage.
has told everything, so my role is now to show some picture. No, but first of all, thank you for the invitation. And I have to tell you at once, it is really something strange for me now to be in a space like that, because you have to know my age. I'm in 3 years. I'm 70 years old, and somehow I feel myself. I'm a connection between the past and the future. I'm something in between. When I was born, the first thing I had was paper and pencil, and then slowly, after 40 years, suddenly the computer came, and I was involved into the new technology in a way that I had no fear about those new technology. I put the technology always in my work, but somehow I'm really excited by the development of the technologies. And I always say what maybe my role would be is to bring my experience of life, of art, what I felt in my youth, in my childhood, to bring it to remember for this kind of perception to the audience. And maybe that is my role, and I'm working something in between the past in and for the future. Maybe we start now with some pictures. We have put some pictures in a presentation to bring you a certain kind of imagination how I work and why I work. And in the very beginning, we made a little film from 3 minutes to bring the scale of the panoramas to the audience, because what we have here in the virtual space, I think it's difficult to explain it, but the film maybe brings an idea of what we are really doing. So let's look first to this image film. When people ask me what I am, I always say I'm something in between, or if I make it very concrete, I'm a painter, I'm a drawer. Because whatever I do, it is based on this drawing. And when I say I'm who I am because I'm drawing, when I was child, I started with 10 years old. I remember I was really every day I was drawing. I don't know why, but I was excited by drawing and to put the things I see on paper. And I think if you see three little samples, we don't want to use too much time, but I have a lot of sketchbooks, and wherever I were, I was drawing. And I think this drawing skill gave me the freedom to think of, to have my own space always in school. and wherever I was. And then I started to study architecture, not because I wanted to be an architect. I had the fear to tell myself I'm an artist. With 18 years old, my mother said, no, you do something proper. And so I said, okay, architecture would be not so bad because architecture is space, it's all these things. And they are drawing, it's a kind of art too. But the second study I did, it was when painting. So I have two studies, two knowledges about architecture and painting, I think, and that brought me somehow on my way to this illusionary interest. Because when I was young, I was not only in painting and in these anamorphotic things, what I show you now, I was really also interested in pantomime and in magic and all these things. And I think one of the most important things for a child is to get a passion for something. And this passion I had. I don't know why, but every child you see who has a passion has really a good foundation to go for life. But when youngsters, I ask what you are interested in, they say, I'm not interested in anything. I think it's a sad thing. But I had the chance to go with these illusionary ideas in my mind. And after architecture, my studies, and I went to West Berlin. Now I'm living for 40 years in West Berlin, and I started to open a office, architectural office. We had a lot of success, but after 4 or 5 years, I saw, no, that's not my theme. I have to go for art, and so I started with the things. But to start with art is also existence problem, and so I had this chance because I was architect. I earned a lot of money through illustrations, all the things, and I show you those things, and I tell those things because to make you understand why I came to the panorama. That is the goal I have. And when you see now the architectural simulation for my own project, next please. You see, I was always interested from the very beginning to sketch, to make people understand what I'm designing. And that was in a time where really architecture was not drawn. It was only models, and it was the very beginning of the 80s. And we were in our office, we were somehow famous because of those pictures, because nobody made pictures in that time. Next. And also I earned money through illustrations for other architects. Next. And it's funny because in that time also Photoshop and this computer, they came. But my favorite technique was oil of canvas, because that's what you see here. It's really an oil painting on a photograph, and yeah. But that's only, I have to say, this made a base for living for me, to earn money and but not to lose the subject of three-dimensional thinking. And the first installation I made when I left the architectural aspect, it was Anamorphosis. And Anamorphosis, maybe some of you know what it is. It is to create a space in another space. Its function through really perspective distortion. Imagine what you see here. You see a big railway station, a very famous railway station, what was destroyed in World War II in Berlin, and it was a very fantastic railway station, and they made an exhibition about this railway station. And I simulate that in an anamorphose. And when I show you now the next pictures, maybe you understand how it functions. Here you see the edges of the cube where I was painting it on. In that time, I was painting really on the surface. The cube was 6 by 6 meters and 3 meters high, but the illusion was a big hall from, I don't know, 20 meters height and 100 meters long and so on. And in the next, maybe you see it better. You see the right side of the picture, you see the illusion, and the left side, you see the distortion. So from one special point, you see the right illusion, but if you leave this point, you see the distortion. And so I could do whatever I want to do, wherever I were. Maybe that is a very famous project I made. That was the wall in Berlin. I made this in 86, last century, and it was a wall. You see the bridge, and they were covered by a wall because this river, what was here was, wie heißt das? Wie heißt das, wenn man das stellt? It was drained, yeah. There was no water anymore. And you see behind, you see a church, and this church, in between the church and the bridge, was the Berlin Wall. And so I made one picture, an illusion that I painted on the wall from the bridge, and on the wall from the real wall, I painted the left, the other part of the church, and suddenly you had the illusion that the wall didn't exist anymore. And if you change the position, you see now the three levels of paintings. Behind, you see the church, then you see a part of the wall is painted, and then in front is under the bridge. And here you see me painting on the wall. And now that's the funny thing. One piece of the wall was sold, bought from a businessman from Rome, and he dedicated it to the Pope. And now this piece of wall is now standing in the Vatican garden. And I was 10 years ago, I was there, and it was really funny. You do something, and suddenly it makes a journey like that. So, and the next thing is, you have seen now Anamorphosis in a very simple and little way, but I made that in other exhibitions. I make them with this knowledge. I made many anamorphosic installations. I will show you two more. That was a Constantine exhibition in Trier in Germany. And you see in the next picture, you see on the right side, you see this panorama of ancient Rome, 312. And left, you see a room where you could enter. And if I show you what happened in the room, you see it's again this cube anamorphotic aspects, because there is a colors, the colors of Constantine. It was a sculpture, I think, 10 meters high, but nobody knew how it really looked like. And you see here, these pieces of Constantine are now in the museum in Rome, and we put them together, and the scientists, they say it was a sitting sculpture, yeah. And when you see that in the next picture, you see this distortion on the sides of the cube. Now you see the distortion. You see look to the length of the arm of the guy who's standing in front. I make it a little bit faster. You see here, you see always, if you have it planned for you, you see the distortion. That's the ground. And here, if you are not on the right point, you see again the distortion. But if you are on the right point, you see the person, the woman, she's real, and the guy who's standing in the picture, he's not real. And that is when you are really sitting, you have suddenly the imagination that Constantine is standing, the sculpture, you are standing in front of the Constantine structure. And another aspect, like the wall, is if you make a anamorphotic painting in several levels. The one thing is to make anamorphotic painting in a cube, and this is a is a system with different levels. So it was combined with the exhibition of the Rome Panorama. And here that was the first sketch, because in Leipzig we have a big gasometer and gaswork, and there I could put really big hanging canvases, and through them I had really this fantastic experience of standing in the colors of Constantine. And next you see the different levels. You see this green one, this yellow one, the red, and the violet. The red one is in front, is very near to the viewer, and then the next is the violet, then the yellow one, and you see the green one is not parallel to the other elements. It's really vertical to them. Even that you can put, but the distortion of the green one is very, very big. You will see it now, and you see the scale with industrial climbers. We put these levels on the ceiling. Here you see that's the front one. And this is the distortion of the green one. Going back, you see that is the hand. From the front, you see it it looks good, but from the side you have to, yeah, it's much longer, and even you can even see that's a hand. But together you have suddenly the illusion of standing in front of the Colosseum of Constantine. And it was the first time ever that someone tried to put all these pieces, what they have found, together. But the most important thing, now coming to the panorama, you see my interest was somehow in illusional aspects, and so I was somehow not famous, but the people know there is someone who does strange things, and they asked me to join in an exhibition in the Kunsthalle Bonn in 1903. It was the exhibition about the panoramas of the 19th century. And for me was this really the discovering of the panoramas, because I knew about panoramas, but I had not thought about them. And through the work in this exhibition, I said the panorama, somehow I felt that is something what is wrong, that they say that's an old-fashioned aspect. I say, no, that's not old-fashioned. I think we have to find the themes for this kind of panoramas. And historians, they say it's a dinosaur of the mass edutainment of the 19th century. And I said, that's a nice sentence, but I don't believe that, because the film is also a product of the 19th century. Till now, we have film, we have cinema, we have all the things. Photography, whatever we have from the 19th century, the most important thing is to bring the content to the technology. Not the technology is bad or old, but we have to put the content in. And so I started with the panorama in one. Really, it was very naive from me, but somehow it happened. All of this project, I could show you hundreds of projects, but for me, the fantastic thing is that people, they didn't know that, and they say, what you are talking about? And I said, let's go for it. And I always found people to believe in that things. And this was really something, the city vision of Berlin, you have to know, in the 1990s of the last century, the ball break down, and they say, now we are building a new Berlin, and so on. And as usual, the architects and the politicians, they start drawing something, and the people, they didn't know what they are doing. And I said, let's simulate the future of Berlin. And it happened, and I made, you see this drawing, with scaffold construction, I said I will build pavilions and put inside the pavilions the future of Berlin. And I could realize 4 of those pavilions, and the people they were walking through this town, went inside the pavilion, and suddenly they saw the future in the scale 1:1. That you have to know. Panorama is the scale 1:1. And when you see this scaffolding construction, and then you see in between is a circus, and there in the back you see the other, that's Pariser Platz, and this is Potsdamer Platz. And you are inside, you see it was really far before the buildings, so people really, they can stick their finger in the air and they could say really, there will be that house and there will be that house. It is really I always say that is democracy, to bring what you really want to do to the people, because these construction plans, nobody can read them, but this three-dimensional aspect is something that people are interested in, especially when they live in the town. So, but meanwhile, I was I was professor in the university here, and I started with something, but then I said I have to go away from this technology aspects, because I was inventing electronic panorama. I always say that it was the cheapest panorama in the world, because it was I could, how I explain, I made 4 projectors and put them in a way, in a circle, that these 4 projectors could project the whole panorama in a size from 6 meters, 7 meters diametry. And you see in front, you see the computers. We made special softwares, not me, but people I knew. And they could really, in real time, they were drawing in Photoshop. You see down this for monitors. And in real time, the drawing was put into a projection on the wall. And we were sitting with students in the middle of the panorama. And every student could explain in real time what he wants to do with his project. And for me, it was something in a time where you have to know it is now 20 years, 25 years old, these pictures, and there were no technology for those. So I made it so simple that even with this technology we had in that time, to could really discuss projects in real time. And I think even now, this is a setting what really could even now could be used, but the university was not smart enough to follow this aspect, and I left the university. So that was my little step towards the technology. But then I said, it's not really my aspect to create technologies, and I know the technologies, they are now coming, and all these things will come, and we are living in the middle of this really revolution of technology. And I tried it once again to make it a little bit bigger. You see that is a scale now 12 meters in diameter, and it was functioning, because you see here the projectors you see them, they were on the side of the outline of the was it Kreis? Circle of the circle, because the idea was not to bring the projector from the middle, what you have often. I put them on the line of the circle, and I had much more possibilities through that. So, but then I said, oh, that is not my case, technology, to invent technology. But now the panorama restart. I had made a lot of panoramas, little panoramas. I was working with it, and so somehow I was known as the guy who makes panorama. And Daniel Liebeskind, maybe the one or the other know him. It's an architect who was joining the World Trade Center competition, and he came. He was in that time working in Berlin. He came to me and said, "Listen, it's a worldwide open competition, and I'm searching for something what is showing the idea from me, what I want to plan there." And he explained it to me, and maybe you see now in New York what they did. It's this big hall. He said that is his idea, and to put the buildings around this round. And I said the only aspect I can tell you it's a panorama, because at the scale of that what you are planning, you cannot put it in a model. You have to make the people understand this dimension of the idea. And so we decided to make a panorama. And at the end, I really wanted to build a panorama in New York, but the jury, they said, no, we have not a large room like that. And so I made the most boring simulation architectural film. And that is maybe the very important step I did, because to make space clear, I think you have to be, in a sense of filmmaking, you have to be boring, because to understand space, it's the speed is not the instrument to make space understandable, because architecture is really something you have to slow down the speed. And Daniel, he said then to me, he won the competition. He said when he had made speeches, he always made his speech, and then he showed this 3 minutes film. I have cut it a little bit. Now you have 2 minutes to see the film. It's very simple, but I think it is. I have to put the passion in, but yeah. Okay, so let's look to the film. So you have seen, it is very, I took out the speed, because if you see the most of the architectural illustrations or animations are fast, like a flying around and moving around, and it is very hard to understand space by speed. When you come into a church, you are standing, you are not running through the church, and this feeling of understanding something, that made my next step, and so it was year 2001, and someone said to me, it's the 50th anniversary of climbing the Mount Everest. And I was very naive, and I said the biggest mountain needs the biggest panorama. And I was searching for a space for big things like that, and I found a gaswork in Leipzig, where I was in my youth. I went there to school, and a friend said, we have a gaswork and nobody knows what to do with it. And I went there, and they said, we try not to be fascinated. And that was a funny sentence in the beginning, but it was a good start. And that's, again, I could tell you now for 2 hours how I did it or how we did it, because I found people that were excited by this aspect. And we started with, in this gasometer, it's in German, I think, in English it's gaswork, and that is the scale what I had there. And I really wanted to put panorama in this size, the first time ever, and I didn't know about technology. We made all the mistakes you can do, but at the end it functioned. The people came, and some people said in advance, if there will come 30,000 people, then it's a success. But it was 500,000 came there in 2 years, and it was really something what made me secure to go for the panoramas, and then this story about panoramas starts. And we have now a lot of locations, new locations. We built new houses, and I have now partners who are interested to show all these panoramas we did. And let's look to some other architectural buildings where we show panoramas from the last 20 years. That is in France. So the problem about this old-fashioned panoramas is that really the buildings are the problem, but somehow we reached a level now where people we can persuade people to build them and to show the pictures we do. And that is the team behind. It's not me alone. If I would do them alone, I think I could only do 2 panoramas in my life. But it's a fantastic group behind me, and we now working for panoramas now for 20 years. And no, that is not. Wo sind die Panoramen? Die Panoramen sind nicht da. We have lost one. Wir haben doch die Panoramen, die wir machen. Das kann so bum 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 bum. Okay, we have lost here a page, but we have many themes we are working on. It is Rome, it is Pergamon, it is in France, it is Jeanne d'Arc, it is all this, then nature panoramas, Amazon, then we have Great Barrier Reef, Antarctic, and then a garden, a simple garden. It is a lot of themes I have worked on, and I think if I'm thinking of, I brought maybe the panorama again to the art aspect, because in the second half of 19th century, it was misused by ideological aspects, because the people wanted to show the battles, the winning of battles, and the politics were very involved in this panoramatic installation. And that's why I thought I have to bring the themes I'm interested in. And through this fantastic development of our work, I really, as an artist, can decide whatever I want to do. And I'm really able to do it with this team and with all these partners I have. So that is the little speech, and it is not enough to explain the things, but this is the stage I have today. But maybe let's go on a little walk to the first sketches of a panorama, and then to see 3 of them in the final version. So let's go to the first room to see the first sketch. I think it's the Titanic sketch. And in between the sketches and the final version always is a work from 3 to 5 years. But the sketch is always the beginning of a project. And in the middle is always the best place to stay and turn around. Of course, this is not the really perception what you have in the real panoramas, because the angle of the camera is very wide, and the scale is 30 meters. If you are standing in front of it, it's a really, really huge picture. But what you have, it's a scale 1:1. You really think you are in front of the Titanic wreck. And one thing I have to say, whenever I do those things, there is a meaning behind. I'm not talking today about why I'm doing the Titanic, why I'm doing the Amazon, why I'm doing Pergamon, but that is another speech I had to give, because always when people ask me how you do it, I always say, ask me first why I'm doing it. That is for me the most important thing. And this how we have to create a lot of things to go the way for creating them, even new technologies. But so let's go to the next. That is one of the first sketches of Pergamon. Pergamon in the year 129 after Christ. And here's a big museum. It's in cooperation with the museum, the Pergamon Museum. And that is the funny thing about that. Whoever is in Berlin, I suggest you to go to this museum. It's part-wise, it's closed, and we have an interims building. There's the Panorama and exhibition about old sculpture and all the things. And many people now, they tell me never ever they have seen a museum with ancient history in this manner, because somehow they have the feeling that someone takes them to explain something, to bring emotion to a time what is not existing anymore, only through the sculptures. And scientists, between science and art, I think starts now a new cooperation, because in the 20th century, most of the museums were done by scientists, but now more and more they are looking for the museum of the future, and that is another subject I could talk about, but that is not the place today. So go to the next. This is the Amazon. I made 4 journeys in the Amazon forest, and to understand what I'm really going to show, because if you have the idea of something like that, you have to experience it, and this marvelous, this universe of this rainforest. It is of course not showable in one picture, in one panorama, but somehow we reached a level that people really, when they came out, they somehow understand what it means to destroy a forest like that. And I think the panorama is another aspect of looking to the world. We have fantastic art pieces, we have films, we have books, we have photography, we have painting, whatever. But the panorama, I think it is not wise to kill the panorama, the analog panorama, because it's an outstanding, I think it's an outstanding artwork. And hopefully, uh, what we do, it's really the beginning and the renaissance of the analog panorama. But hopefully, it will exist longer that I am living, because I love this aspect. And people now, we have 15 million visitors in the last 20 years, and it encourages us to continue. So now go to the final final panorama. So it means all this what you see here takes at least 3 to 5 years. And to make a vlog from the Titanic, it is something. It is now 10 years old. Now they have new pictures from down. And even I had a place with a submarine, with a Russian submarine. But then in that time I wanted to go down. It was not allowed for five years, and so we find other ways to create this picture. And it's an artificial light setting, because underneath 4,000 meters underneath there is no light. So I said, okay, imagine we had these lamps and to lightening the ground of the sea. And so it is an artistic trick, but the meaning of this project was not this accident. The meaning was to talk about the modern times. The promises, the underlying title of this project was The Promises of the Modern Times. And always to these panoramas also is a beside exhibition, and it's you have to see them together. Okay, the next. So this panorama you can see now in Berlin, and it's a really big success. People are going and they see the exhibition, all the sculptures and all these things they see again in the panorama. And never ever someone has made a picture like that. The films, Hollywood and wherever, we have paintings from the past, but here you have a picture where you can stay for hours and you see details you cannot imagine. And people really stay for hours there. And I always say the viewers are their own directors. They decide how long they look in one angle. Not the cutter is here the director of your scene. You yourself are the director of your own scene. And that makes it very, very interesting for people, because the height, the spectacular height is the very beginning, but that is not the main thing. I think in the moment you get in, you are fascinated by the size, but after 5 minutes you don't see anymore the size. You are really in it, and you walk around and you talk together and you try to understand things what you never had imagined in advance. Okay, the next. And that is an invented space. I haven't seen this location like that. I put all my experiences in these 4 journeys I had together in one panorama. But people really thought that I was standing somewhere and made a photograph. Yeah? That is, whoever is photographing, he knows what we did here, because the resolution is so high, and from the very near flower you see to the end of the hills, everything is precise in a resolution, yeah, and every part is invented. Also, the trees you see, you think I've put photographed tree there, but go into the Amazon forest, never ever you can see a single tree. Everything is it's hidden through other trees, through other plants. It's absolutely impossible to make a photograph like that. And on the other side, it's an artistic piece. I don't want to show the reality. It is a compressed reality. It's an experience I had there. And it's not a scientific place. But the people, when they go out, they're full of emotions, and that's my goal, to touch them somehow in the themes I'm working on. Okay. So I think that was the last one. So if someone has a question, now's the time. I don't see anyone raising his hand. Ah, there's one. There was left.
François.
Yes,
Yeah.
hello. Thank you very much for that. You showed us and travel around. It's really great. Thank you very much for that. I have a question concerning the perspective. Like David Hockney was thinking a lot about how you see, how the eye is seeing, and what do you include this thinking of David Hockney in your work?
It's funny that you are talking about Mr. Hockney, because his life somehow it reminds me to my life. He's a real painter, and he works on his paintings and his photographs he made. He was also always thinking about all the things. I think I'm maybe a little bit more in a realistic aspect of seeing, or I compare the seeing with the impression you have in the real world. David Hockney, he's going, how I can tell it. He has more open spaces for thinking of that. Yeah, it's maybe more emotionally, it's more colorful. But I compare it always with the reality. Now you can say that is subjective, one sees the world in another way. But I think I don't want to discuss it on this level. I want to bring I also have a narrative in my pictures. It is more compared with the film. If you go to the pictures, we have thousands of stories what I'm telling there, and to bring this kind of.
Deswegen sind wir hier rein, damit wir den Livestream gucken.
What is he?
Das ist echt.
Do you understand me? Hello?
Yes. Someone has to mute the microphone. Go ahead with your answer.
David Hockney, I'm very interested in this aspect. He has written this book, The Secret Tricks of the Old Masters, something like that. And he always looked to the optical tricks they have. But that is absolutely right what he's saying, because if Leonardo would have a photo apparat, he could photograph, he would have photographed. But I also think one thing is very important in this age, in 500 years ago, to discover the perspective, to discover the laws of the perspective, because this opens a huge space for all the development in society, from science to art, whatever you see. And if the ancient world would have discovered the perspective rules, I think the engineering would start in that time. But this perspective is another thing of thinking of space, and to say on a two-dimensional surface with a three-dimensional illusion, that is something. Now we say, of course, it's simple to think like that, but it took thousands of years to be able to do that. And so I'm somehow more in the aspect of the comparison with real perception, and I think Hockney has more variety as a real painter, a traditional painter, but I feel myself something between painting and filming. So that's why I think if there is a Unterschied, a difference, maybe that's the difference. My English is not so good because sometimes I feel good, sometimes I don't feel good with English.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions?
Yeah. There is, who's that?
Yes, again, François, I guess he has a following question.
Yeah,
Okay,
I have another question.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you very much.
Go ahead.
So my second question is about the point of view, because in your installation, we can, of course, look in different direction and see different part of the image, but in a way, we always see the same, because the picture is like locked. So in compared to virtual reality, where we can just have another point of view and see perhaps also different things, what about this idea of changing position and seeing different things than the others?
That is, you have to, have you ever seen one of my projects?
To be honest, no, but I discovered them right now, and yeah.
That's why I cannot show you here what it means. You know what the fantastic thing about that? People always think to move around makes it more precise or makes it more deeper. I think to find the point of view to telling a story is as interesting as moving around. The moving aspect. Many people say make it now moving. I say no, never in my life I will move in my panoramas, because to show an aspect from one point, to go into the subject, to take time. Because I gave you the example of Liebeskind, yeah, that makes really a big difference for me, because moving is disturbing. Moving is not the aspect of going deeper into the aspect, yeah, because you see in the whole game industry, it is marvelous what they are doing, but this speed, the technology that we have till now, it is not for me a solution. When I would say now I turn to moving aspects, I think to make this one point aspect, but very precise, very deep, very with all these thoughts I have. It takes 5 years. Imagine what many thoughts we bring to the aspect, yeah. And I think it is very clear, this question, but believe me, this still image from Panorama has not a lack of missing deepness. The moving is something else. I don't say it's something, I cannot compare it, because moving has also its negative sides. And this still has also, maybe, I don't really want to say negative, but there are positive and negative aspects of it. But for me, it's this still to standing on one point and to work on this one point, to get deeper and deeper and deeper. And maybe we have made one project, Carol's Garden. I put myself on a flower, very little one, and we made a bee with the electronic microscope, we made a picture out of it. It took 3 months to make this picture and another five months to clean all these aspects. And now we are standing in front of a 30-meter tall bee, and from the flower we see all these aspects of the garden. You have seen it in films, in Hollywood films, all these micro things. But to stand there, to have your time to concentrate on of all these details you see, you don't need the movement in that case, and the movement doesn't make it more proper, because I'm an artist and I find a point where I try to find a point to tell the story. Because one thing is very hard if you don't think of this aspect to find the wrong point. And then to say, oh, behind the tree, I have the main story, but it's not, now the tree is in front of it. So I can arrange this picture, the panorama, in a way that you don't feel to move. You have not there is no desire to move. And that is the experience I have now from millions of people who send me letters and to say what they experienced there. I think movement is all over the world. I want to stay still.
Okay, thank you. We have another question, if you would like, from Jean-Louis.
Yeah, of course. Jean-Louis.
We
Hello?
cannot hear you, Jean-Louis.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Yes, thank you for this question.
Your
I love
network.
the point of having time to see, because we are dealing every day with so quick pictures, that's awful, and real-time pictures are also a problem. And I want to share a short experience we are just making for the zoo in Zurich, in Switzerland. We are just making a 360 projection of rainforest.
Yeah.
It will open in April next year. And at the end, we choose to make a fixed picture to have time to see this space. And that's a wonderful thing. So unfortunately, we don't have the high room. It will be a 45 projection, but only 3 meters high. But this point of we make an aerial engine, so that's a complete artificial world. It's not painted. It's naturalistic because it's about botanic plants and realistic things. But I love the Pergamon panorama because it's painted. So it's realistic, but it's a painting, and you will know these panoramas Monet with the Nymphéas in Paris. It's a 360 painting, and I think we should go ahead with a panorama who make a mixture of realistic, of course, but which are painted to let the imagination more fly and leave the necessity of being absolutely realistic.
Hopefully I understood you right. I painted 2 years ago, and I was thinking of this project for at least 10 years. I was standing in front in Rouen for the cathedral of Rouen, and someone said to me, that is the cathedral of Monet. He painted 30 times in different lights. And I said, why no impressionist painter has made a panorama? Yeah? And from that moment, I was looking to make this, and we opened this panorama. I called it Cathedral of Monet 2 years ago. It was a really big success because you know what I did? It's exactly what you said now, because now maybe some panoramas will follow where I really paint the panoramas, but in a certain way. I said how to do it, paint a panorama in an impressionistic way, and why I want to do it. I said when I went for this project, I said the meaning or the why is because I think painting belongs to the people, and this art business stuff of the presence made a distance between the ordinary people and the paintings. I'm always love if someone is painting, and I think even children, the very beginning of to articulate yourself is painting with children. And so I said, I have to bring this beauty of painting to the people, because the Impressionists, they did it as an answer of technology, because in that time, that was invented the photographs, and many of the painters, when you read that, they were disappointed, they were depressed, they said, now our work is useless. And I said the Impressionists found the right answer to this technology. They said, we are the one who now discovers that we are human beings. And if now the technology can show the reality much realer than we painter could do, so we have to find other ways. And they discovered these colors and this light, and I don't have to explain it. And that's why I said, I have to bring this feeling of this time to the people now. And so, I decided to paint a scale not 30 meters high. I painted this cathedral in the old space, because most of the houses, they don't exist anymore there. And so I painted for 1.5 years this surrounding of the cathedral in a special light, in a evening light. And then we photographed that very precise in a very high resolution. So people, when they go to the canvas of the panorama, all of them they wanted to touch the panorama, because all these strokes of the color, they went to sculptures. You really were in front of it and you thought it is three-dimensional. It was only colors, that with impressional paintings. And when you go far away, suddenly all these colors, they come together and you see the image, a face or a house or whatever. And I think what you are saying, I'm the beginning of, it took me now 20 years to find the technologies to finance all these things. It's not my business. I'm not interested in business. I'm always interested in content. But now somehow I want to add all this to the other panoramas, this perception of panorama. And I think hopefully I'm still living some couple of years. I have a lot of ideas in that way you are asking for. That is not the end. But I think this natural, it is not real what I'm making. It's maybe photorealistic, but I'm composing a world that doesn't exist. When you are filming the Amazon and you're seeing the rain, I was also filming the rain. I could stay there for hours and look how the rain coming down. It is really, it smells and all the things, you know what I mean, yeah? But for me, these pictures are artistic work, because I compress a story and I put a narrative in what you never ever you could see in real world. And even in the Amazon, maybe that's a good sample, I was 4 journeys there, and there were days when I went through the forest. I said, it's as simple as the forest I have in Germany. But then you are longer there, then you walk, then you see all these different aspects of the rainforest, and suddenly you see this complexity, and I cannot show it on one spot. So I put many spots together to bring this feeling I had in these 4 journeys in one picture. So these pictures are not, you cannot compare them with a photograph that you make from nature. It is a compressed aspect of looking to nature. and that is a very subjective aspect of mine. And if some other artists would do that, I think they would do something else. So that's why I think it's still an art piece with this photographic look, yeah. But in future, this impressionistic panorama we will open it. I work on it again, but we will reopen it next year in Leipzig. So maybe if you are around, you can see it, and maybe then you understand more what I'm telling about.
For sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any last questions? I know we've gone a little bit over time, but I think it's really important that this is an amazing opportunity. We want to thank you, Yadegar, so much for coming here and also joining on this little bit of an experiment. It is a weird way of talking about your work, but I do think there is something meaningful in terms of like understanding your process, perspective, scale, these kinds of simulations that you're creating, and then in this environment, just so everyone knows, the panorama areas, this will be open for the next couple weeks, so you can come back and spend time and kind of look at the spaces. This does not close, and also this presentation will be playing there. So if you want to, reinforce some of the things that he talked about, there's a lot of material covered. But I just want to thank everybody for coming. If you are interested, I will be back in the main hub space in the arena area. If you have any other questions, Yadegar, you're also very welcome to join, but I know that, you can also, you spent quite a bit of your time this morning. So, yes, I guess everyone, a round of applause.